While Louis Vuitton is introducing some new technology, Chanel is getting rid of the authenticity card. Hello, welcome back to Classics with the Quirk, where I talk about contemporary and luxury designer items and brands with a touch of silliness. This is the kind of content that you find interesting. Please do like this video and subscribe for more of it. Thank you. Really? So a lot of people have been talking about this, and this is something that I've actually gotten a lot of questions about myself, which is the fact that Louis Vuitton has taken steps to replace their date codes with chips, an implanted chip technology that people at the boutique will scan to authenticate a piece or to verify when a piece was created and where. As some of you may know, Louis Vuitton has been using date codes since the 80s. These stamps were to let you know where the piece was made and approximately when the piece was made as well. These codes went through several shifts about what the letters and numbers meant, but ultimately it was where the bag or piece was made, and then approximately what time of year it was made, as well as the year it was made. Now, a lot of people like these date codes because they like knowing where and when their piece was made, or at least approximately. You can't go down to the exact day of when, but you can sometimes go as close to the week of when it was made, and that's pretty cool to be able to date your piece. But Louis Vuitton has now taken steps to remove those codes and replace them with chips embedded within the piece that the average consumer is not able to access. Only the boutiques are going to be able to have the technology, supposedly, in order to scan the chip inside the piece and then tell you when approximately it was made. This has caused a little bit of controversy because, as I said, people enjoy being able to date their items, and it kind of makes it a little bit more special to know approximately when your piece was made and what season it was made. That's always nice to know. Having only boutiques having access to this information is a little bit less fun because you have to actually get the boutique to scan the chip or be willing to scan the chip in order to tell you where and when the piece was made. Not where the piece was made, because I believe Louis Vuitton is still stamping the made in for the most part, but when the piece was made. And this has also brought up some talk about authentication, because people do use date codes in order to authenticate pieces, and people do not expect Louis Vuitton to scan chips for pieces you just bring into the store that you bought somewhere else. Most luxury brands already do not authenticate pieces that are not bought within the store from that store. So I cannot imagine that Louis Vuitton would be willing to scan chips from pieces that were not purchased at that location just because you want to authenticate the item. That's not Louis Vuitton's job, and that's not something they want to do because Louis Vuitton wants to discourage reselling. And so anything that enables or allows somebody else to resell a good easier is something that Louis Vuitton wants to remove from the equation. So with these chips, what Louis Vuitton is hoping to do is make their pieces easier to track within the Louis Vuitton system, but also connect them to the person who's purchased it, because it does go on your seller history that you are now linked to that particular chip scan. And if you end up selling your piece for whatever reason, that chip scan is still linked to your name. So whoever buys it is not connected to that chip. So even if they did get it scanned, they wouldn't have it linked to their profile. So there might be a, oh, what's going on here from Louis Vuitton in the event that Louis Vuitton scanned it at all, which they won't. This calls into question a little bit of the future of reselling pieces. Now, resellers, specifically people who purchase items, hard to get items, to resell them for a profit, is different from a person who buys an item and decides that it's not for them in the end, or buys the item and after loving it for a while decides to pass it on to a different home. That's different. A reseller and a person who is reselling their own items are two different beasts, so to speak. And this whole thing with getting rid of the date stamps and replacing them with chips, making them both easier and harder to track for third parties, brings into question how a person wanting to resell their own pieces from the personal collection might fare going forward. Now, of course, this is to discourage resellers, but it's also to discourage counterfeiting. People who are selling fake Louis Vuitton items branded as Louis Vuitton, or even selling stolen Louis Vuitton goods. This is all matters being put into place to try to remove those things from the equation. I believe that Louis Vuitton is much more interested in stopping resellers and counterfeiters than it is in making it easy still for genuine customers to resell parts of their collection they no longer want or use. Now, the thing is, date codes within Louis Vuitton pieces are certainly a part of authenticating that piece, but it's not the whole picture. So even if you have a date code that doesn't guarantee that the piece is authentic, there are other factors that you have to take into account and look at, such as the stitches, the zippers, the canvas itself, where the branding is on the piece. All those things are part of authenticating a Louis Vuitton item. Now, of course, if an item didn't have a date code and it was made after a certain point previously, that was an easy indication that it wasn't an authentic item. But now we don't necessarily know whether or not that piece just doesn't have a date code or if it actually has an implanted chip, unless you have the probably proprietary scanning technology to view what is on the chip. It might make it easier for counterfeiters to sell pieces because they don't have to include a date stamp. They can just say it was made after a certain time period and it's got a chip in it, but you can't access it because you don't have access to the technology to scan the chip. And Louis Vuitton isn't going to scan it for you. And that brings us back to square one. Now, Marie Claire magazine actually recently had an Instagram interview with Sarah Davis, the founder of Fashionphile, which I will link below because it's pretty interesting. And one of the topics in that interview was how Fashionphile viewed this new chip technology and what their opinions are in terms of being able to continue to resell pieces, because Fashionphile is, it's a big resale website and it does sell a lot of pre-loved items, but it also does sell new items. Sarah Davis actually talks about the fact that when a new piece of Chanel comes out, they will buy it brand new to observe it and look at the details and learn about how that particular piece looks when it is authentic. And then they will resell that new piece on their website. And sometimes they will take a loss, but if it's a new sought after piece, it might be marked up. And that's just part of the business model of these websites, obviously, and Fashionphile is known for its markups, especially recently. In the interview, Sarah Davis actually talks about how she's excited about this new technology, how RFID tech might help consumers and the brand itself create quality pieces and have a better idea of how those quality pieces are being sold and who they're being sold to. That is helpful, at least from the brand's perspective. And with Fashionphile specifically, they don't expect this to be a problem with authenticating their pieces because, as she states in the interview, the date stamp is, again, only a part of the authentication process. They look at other details within the piece to see whether or not the piece is authentic. At this time, Fashionphile does not have any intentions of trying to get a hold of the proprietary Louis Vuitton tech to scan the chips, and they don't plan to scan the chips. They don't plan to try to touch the chip technology. They just plan to use other methods and look at other details in order to determine whether an item is authentic. And that's fair if you're willing to trust Fashionphile's authenticity process, or if you want to go to a third-party authenticator to get a second opinion. That might be fine for you. That might be still enough to secure your mind that you are buying an authentic piece. But I can see how some people might not be secure in not being able to determine whether or not there is a chip at all, or being able to read the chip in a pre-loved piece. Authenticity is the number one question on everybody's mind when it comes to buying pre-loved. Is this item authentic? And it's scary to think about buying an item that ends up not being authentic. And there are horror stories all over YouTube of people who get scammed in thinking that they're buying an authentic piece and it ends up not being authentic. Amelia Rose's Closet actually had a video recently about her story in buying a fake bag by accident and how the fake bag came with all the accoutrements that a legitimate bag should come with, and her feelings as a result of learning that she had purchased a fake bag, which were fair and valid. I personally think that buying pre-loved is excellent for a variety of reasons. It's sustainable for one thing. It helps give new life to a previously loved piece. It lets you have a piece in your collection that might have been discontinued or no longer made. That's really cool, especially if you're looking for a sought after color or a design that you missed out on because it came out 10 or 15 years ago. That's always neat. It also allows you to, reduce your consumption of new goods and reuse goods that already exist, tying back into the sustainability. And sometimes you get your items at a discount, which is pretty cool considering that these pieces are very expensive. But I can see how not having a date code that you can yourself look at and observe and at least date the item that you're looking to buy might be a deterrent for a lot of people who might have previously been willing to buy pre-loved. Not being able to access this chip is definitely something that I will personally be thinking about in future purchases if I wanted to buy a pre-loved bag. I think that I'm not alone in this matter. Now, those are my talking points on Louis Vuitton, but I also have to mention Chanel, because Chanel is doing something new and different also that has just been happening, and I think it's very worth talking about. Now, many of you who are interested in Chanel might recognize this. This is the Chanel Authenticity card that comes with any bag or SLG purchase. It is just this black plastic card with, this in the front. And then on the back, it has the serial number, as well as just the certificate of authenticity. And the serial number, unlike Louis Vuitton date codes, which you could have multiple pieces with the same date code because multiple pieces might be made in the same factory on the same month in the same year. Serial numbers for Chanel are unique. Each Chanel item has a different serial number. So every time you get a Chanel authenticity card with your item, you match your authenticity card number to the item's number on the serial code inside the piece. Know that they match up, and that is a guarantee on Chanel's part that it is an authentic piece with a specific serial number to that piece. Now, of course, having an authenticity card and a serial number in a pre-loved item is not a guarantee of authenticity because, especially with super fakes, counterfeiters can counterfeit anything. They can counterfeit the packaging, they can counterfeit the receipt. So there's no way to 100% guarantee absolutely to the nanomillimeter thread count that you have an authentic item unless you buy it brand new from the boutique. You have to obviously know about other details of that item, and it's probably also a good idea to go to a third-party authenticator to get a second opinion or third opinion on whether or not a pre-loved item that you've bought or are planning on purchasing is authentic. Chanel has had serial numbers coupled with authenticity cards since the 80s, and for the first time ever, Chanel is going to be changing their method of how those serial numbers are going to work. And part of that is getting rid of the authenticity card altogether. And when I say getting rid of the authenticity card, I mean it literally. Chanel is planning on no longer providing authenticity cards with their items at all. Now, though Chanel is getting rid of the authenticity card, they're not getting rid of the serial number. They're actually going to just be doing something else with it. The serial code in Chanel pieces has been a sticker with a number and like a cover on it for decades and decades. Chanel is going to be removing the serial sticker completely and instead replacing it with a metal tag somewhere inside the piece, and etched onto that tiny metal tag is going to be the serial number for that item. From what I've seen so far of these tags, they're all this aged silver color that is just placed inside of the bag, usually in a pocket or underneath a fold or something. And these tags are being rolled out as we speak. New items from current Chanel seasons are being rolled out with the metal tag, no serial sticker, and no authenticity card when you purchase it. So you do not receive an authenticity card when you purchase an item with a metal tag. Now, how do I feel about this? Well, I am mixed. I've always liked having the authenticity card, and when I buy pre-loved, I only purchase items that come with the authenticity card that I can match to an intact serial number. That's just how I buy, and honestly, I think how a lot of people buy. They like being able to have the serial sticker in good condition, the authenticity card, and being able to match those two things together. Of course, as I said before, having the authenticity card is not a guarantee that the item is authentic, but having an extra thing that comes with the bag that builds on the authenticity does help ease your mind, especially after you get it authenticated by a third party. That helps certainly in relieving any fears or anxiety that your piece might be inauthentic. Now, why is Chanel doing this? Probably like Louis Vuitton, to deter counterfeiters, because, you know, it's just a piece of plastic. You can replicate a piece of plastic. A metal tag will be a little harder to replicate, and that is because of how small it is. Now, a YouTuber I really enjoy, the Luxonomy, recently had a video on counterfeit Chanel jewelry. Counterfeit jewelry supposedly made by authentic Chanel buttons and zipper pulls and stuff. Why those pieces were definitely inauthentic, and the ways that you can tell that those pieces were inauthentic. And an excellent point she made was the etchings on these pieces. Counterfeiters only have access to certain levels of quality in their materials. The types of machines required to do fine etchings on metal, really tiny little numbers and letters on metal, are very expensive. And obviously that's not an expense that Chanel needs to worry about, but it is an expense that a counterfeiter might need to worry about and might not be able to front the bill for. Counterfeit Chanel goods that have etchings on them, the etchings are usually bigger, they're usually messier, they're not as neat, they're definitely not as small. And so a metal tag that has a teeny tiny little serial number etched in it is probably going to be a lot harder for a counterfeiter to replicate. And that is good. That might really help the stem of super fakes that are currently in the market. Counterfeiters are not ready for this new type of tagging system from Chanel, so they don't have access to the machines needed to do these tiny fine-tuned detail etchings on metal yet. That is not to say that they won't have the technology eventually, but probably at least right now, they don't have it. And it will be a lot harder for them to get it because, again, these types of machines are very expensive. However, there is something I want to point out about these metal tags, and that is that to our knowledge so far, these tags are not chips. They're just metal tags. There is no RFID technology within them. There is no blockchain technology in them. They're just metal tags sans chip. Unlike Louis Vuitton, which at least has a scanning process that you can use to authenticate an item, these Chanel tags are just metal. They might have chip technology in the future, but from what I found, so far, they don't, or at least they're not telling us that they do. And that is a little bit strange to me, that they'd introduce these metal tags that have the ability to have chip technology and then don't have the chip technology within them. They're just literally metal plates with the serial code etched into it. I don't think that that's a long-term solution to the counterfeiting problem, because even if counterfeiters don't right now have the technology to make those fine little etchings, they might in the future, because if it's a lucrative enough sale, they might be willing to front the money for those types of machines. Having technology within the metal plate as a chip that you can scan and track the authenticity is a better way to track the authenticity. If Chanel does introduce chip technology, though, it does call into question, like Louis Vuitton, how that might affect the resale market, and not resellers, but people reselling from their own collections for whatever reason. Now, Chanel, especially in 2020 and currently 2021, has had a huge problem with professional resellers. People who somehow manage to purchase these unicorn pieces and colors and then resell them for a profit. Chanel's had a lot of issue with that recently, and have actually received quite a backlash from regular consumers who are going, I am a loyal customer. I've been a loyal customer for a very long time. I really wanted this particular color, and you said that you couldn't get it for me, but I'm seeing 10 of them being resold on this Instagram account from a reseller. What's the deal? So Chanel has been trying to take steps to eliminate this reseller problem, limiting the number of bags that you can buy, limiting the amount of bags you can buy in a year, limiting what sizes and styles. Like, they're doing all these different limitations, but they're mostly affecting the average consumer who is just a fan of the brand and wants to buy their goods. Resellers are still managing to get 10 of the same item and resell them, and that's probably because they have teams of people who all are working at this because that's their job or side hustle. And that's just something that we're all dealing with right now in terms of wanting to get an item, not being able to get the item because a reseller bought all of the stock. Now, the professional reseller topic is an interesting one and a nuanced one, and so I'm not going to talk about it too much in this video. If you're interested in the video about my thoughts and opinions on that and what information I've collected, please let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to make a video about it. But in regards to this topic, if Chanel really started to track who bought what, they'd be able to better track resellers too, because they'd be able to see, oh, this account purchased a classic medium flap in iridescent pink from this boutique, but also purchased it from that boutique and this boutique and that boutique and this boutique. They're definitely a reseller. We're no longer going to sell them pieces. We're going to blacklist them, something like that, or they're going to limit their account purchases. That is probably the idea and hope that Chanel would have in terms of trying to implement a tracking method in their pieces. They link their accounts to what the person has bought, or they would if there was actual tracking information within this metal plate, which there isn't at this time. So I don't know about that, Chanel. I don't know what they're thinking or what they're planning on doing in the future. It's a bit of a complicated topic, in part because we don't know what the technology actually is, because of course it's proprietary and it's also very new. So we're only getting this information as it leaks out from people who know more about this than we do. I'm only talking to you about what I've been able to find so far, both from my essays and from people I've talked to, discussions on the purse forum, all that sort of thing. I'm information gathering and then just kind of presenting it to you in the best way I possibly can. Of course, if you ever have information about this sort of thing, please feel free to leave a comment down below or message me on Instagram, Classics with a Quirk, all one word. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And in terms of this topic, I'd love to hear what you have to say. What are your opinions on Louis Vuitton removing the date code and replacing it with a chip, or Chanel getting rid of the authenticity card altogether and replacing it with the metal plate tag, eventual chip, possible, maybe, we don't know. I'd love to hear what you think. If you like this video, please do give it a like, because it super duper helps the algorithm, and subscribe for more content because it helps the algorithm even more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.